Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Sin and Tonic. Today's story is that of Audrey and Eric Hingston. This one blew my tiny mind. Let's go. Sin and Tonic! Bum, 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 bum. Sin and Tonic. Hi loves, how are we? I was not joking when I said this one blew my mind. It really, really did. Yeah. Just to let you know as well, I've gone back to the old contact lenses for filming Sin and Tonic because I do have to wear my glasses. I'm not meant to wear contact lenses for very long because I have had an issue, but I've gone back to the contacts because it was, what's that word? Unreasonable, irrational. How angry I was getting with the reflection of the lights in my glasses. So every time I was editing a video, I think I only filmed 2 or 3 times in my glasses, I honestly, all I could focus on was ring light. Oh, to the point where I wasn't listening to what I'd said and it was just stressing me out. So to save my sanity for the duration of filming Sin and Tonic, which is, not that long, it's fine to wear them, I will wear my contact lenses. Useless information for you. Storytime is safe. Without further ado, today we are going to Plymouth, which is in the southwest of England. And in Plymouth, there is a small village, I'm going to call it a village, called Plymton. Very quaint, very lovely. Our story takes place in 2003 with Eric and Audrey Hingston. This really is a story of two halves because, oh my gosh, there's some really cute stuff, like cute, oh, sweet, lovely, and then not so much. Let's start with the sweet, okay? Eric had run the local butcher's shop in Plymton for years, as in for years, not 4 years, 4 years. And he lived in the flat above the butcher's shop. It is very quaint and very lovely and very... As Eric got on in years, his son took over the business. So he then ran the butcher's shop and Eric retired. Everybody knew Eric in the village. Like I say, I live in a village. Everyone knows everything. Everyone knows everyone. You can't sneeze without so-and-so knowing. And especially, if you're a shopkeeper, a butcher, run the pub, you're like a local celebrity. He married his first wife, Jean, in 1950. They had 2 children together. Eric had been in the RAF, and then when he left the RAF, that's when he became a butcher. Sadly, Jean passed away in 1982. Let me do the maths. So they had been married for 32 years. A few years after this, Eric started a romantic relationship with a woman called Audrey. She was 60, he was 62. They both had she was a widow. She had children herself. And so they came together at a later stage in their lives, so in their 60s, and then they got married. So sweet. That is so sweet. I love things like that. They had known each other before Jean had passed away, and they were friends. But then after Jean had died a few years later, they'd obviously become much closer, and that's when their romance blossomed. And they were out and about. They were living it up, man. They would go on holidays together. They were quite active. They would always be out and about and in the local village. And they had a social life. So they were just, they were living the dream. However, when Eric turned 80, so they've had 18 years now of retirement, I guess, living an active retirement. And when he turned 80, his health just took a massive, decline. Is that the word? I couldn't think of... That's the word, yes. What's wrong with me today? He developed heart problems, he had asthma, he had to have a hip replacement, and he had to have a catheter. I had to have a catheter. Is that too much information? I don't know. I don't care. When I had my first son, because I had to have some stitches, again, too much information, who cares? And wow. Once it's there, you're used to it. But when they remove it, what? Oh, we're just going to deflate. It's just the most unnatural, weird thing. Having something in and then like a... No, cringe. So, yeah, and I think if you've got one of those, effectively, you must be pretty much housebound because unless you can carry your bag around. I'm sure people do get out and about, but he was quite unwell. Despite the catheter and the health problems in the hip, they did try to be out in the community as much as they could, but it wasn't very much. And he had real problems with sleeping. He had to sleep pretty much sitting up with pillows propped up because of the breathing and the heart and the stuff like that. So to breathe and feel like he could get enough air, he had to sit up in bed, often having a window open. We'll come back to that. So yeah, probably not getting very much sleep or very disturbed sleep. It's just sad, isn't it? It is just sad that someone's health can deteriorate so quickly. Locals would say they were just happy, they were friendly, they were lovely, such a lovely couple. And like I said, they were still pottering around when they could. And then, this is where it gets spicy for the first time. We have levels of spiciness here. Level 1. On Friday the 29th of August 2003, at 3:45am, Audrey made a 999 call. She was at home and she was quite distressed, and she said that intruders had broken in to their flat above the butcher's. They had attacked her husband, Eric, and then they had fled the scene. When officers arrived, the front door to the flat was shut tight. So nobody had kicked in that front door or anything like that. That was not the point of entry. So the police knocked on the door and Audrey came to answer the door, and she was not in a very good way. She was quite confused, she was in shock, and she was quite distressed. I mean, can you imagine? Eric was upstairs, laying on the floor. Sorry, I don't think I said. He was 83 at this time. Audrey was 81. And he was found on the floor. He was declared dead at the scene. He had suffered a single stab wound to his chest. Audrey said that she had been sleeping and they slept in separate rooms, mainly because Eric had these conditions and he probably didn't sleep very well. Lots of people sleep in separate rooms as they get older. I can understand why. Because when Paul has a cold or any sort of issue that's not normal, he's like a walrus, turning and tossing and turning in the bed and snoring all over the place. It's like, hello. You know, sometimes I'm like, what? Are you trying to, like, literally launch me into space with your turnings over? Why have they got to be so dramatic? Why? It's like, jeez. And then I'm awake. We just share it, shall we? That's what it is. I shall share in his pain. Anyhow, they slept in separate rooms. Audrey hears a commotion. She gets out of bed, she goes to her bedroom door, and she's then confronted with 2 intruders. Not 1, 2. And they had rampaged the property, the flat. There were drawers pulled out, wardrobes open. They'd gone to town. When they were interrupted by Audrey, they had fled the flat via Eric's window in his bedroom. And like I said, he often slept with his bedroom window open. So is this how they got into the property? It seems likely. First thing that I'm like, what? What now? After all that, and after stabbing Eric in the chest, so they've gone quite far with this home invasion burglary, they then leave all of the things that they had bagged up. They'd bagged it in a black sack, all of the belongings that they wanted to take, any valuables, and they left it. So they left that by the window in Eric's bedroom. What was the point? If you're going to leave, are they stupid or did they panic? If you're going to go to the effort of all of that and stabbing somebody, and then you leave all of the stuff you're going to steal, no. More questions. Why didn't they kill Audrey too? If they've gone that far and they've killed Eric, why, bearing in mind he's bedridden, he was no threat to them whatsoever. Were they scared when they entered the window and saw that he was in bed in that room? I don't know. Did they not want him to raise the alarm? But why then not kill Audrey too? Because she was she was a witness to it. So that's a question. Another one. Quite rightly, the following day, when all of this, like I said, I live in a village. When you live in a village, it's like Chinese whispers and everything, you literally cannot fart. People know. So the community soon knew that this had happened, and they were terrified because now there are 2 intruders that have just broken into someone's flat and murdered an innocent man that posed no threat. So that is, I would be terrified. That's literally, they've just come in and murdered somebody for nothing because they didn't even take the stuff that they had stolen. Effectively, they hadn't stolen it because they hadn't left. But you know what I mean, that they were going to steal. Audrey was so shaken up. This frail, elderly, sweet woman was just very confused. And so she needed to not be there. And they took her to her son's house, who happened to be an ex-detective sergeant. And the following day she was interviewed, and she did remarkably well. She was able to give a very clear and precise description of the intruders. One of the men was 6'1", he had white trousers on and a deerstalker hat. The other man was shorter, 5'8" or something like that, and she could describe them both very clearly. She also said that she had seen these men around the local community, like in the weeks leading up to this. Audrey seemed to just be, she was on it. And they even asked her if she would do a press conference, and they didn't think that she would be able to. And she did. She bossed it. She made a statement. She spoke. She had her son with her. And yeah, she did this like huge thing in front of a room full. That must be so intimidating. But she was like, yeah, I'm going to do it because I want to catch these men. This all led to 2 suspects being arrested, and they fit the description that Audrey had given, like, it's them. It's got to be them. They had been staying in the local hostel. However, despite the fact that it was almost 100%, you know, these guys were such a match to her description, they had a really, really strong alibi. So I'm guessing the hostel was like a homeless hostel, and that they were just there. They weren't locals, but they were staying there at that time. I'm not sure, actually, on those facts. However, the hostel have certain policies, and I think like CCTV, stuff like that. And when the murder was committed in the break-in, it was impossible. And the police ruled it out, and it was impossible that these 2 men could have left the hostel to commit that crime. So it was a no. It wasn't like, no way. And then, because Audrey was so confused, so shocked by what had happened, the police started to entertain the thought that she might have just, in her mind, was just so confused and so traumatised, because, it's horrific what's happened, that her brain had strongly remembered these 2 men from seeing them that week out and about, and that maybe her brain was putting them into a situation that they hadn't really been in, because it was impossible for them to have committed the crime. So that's what they started to think, that she had just, her brain had put the 2 things together, but incorrectly. This is where it gets spicy, level 2, right? During this time, forensics are all over that flat. And they find, sweet FA, literally no alien DNA whatsoever in the flat. Not even glove marks. No traces of fibres. And this was especially suspicious around the window, Eric's window, because that is where Audrey said they had entered and exited the property. The only fibres that they found were on and around Eric's body. So they took samples from the paramedics because that's what they thought, these fibres were, and that was correct. So they could place the fibres that they did have that were alien to the paramedics. I love this. This is proper CSI, right? What they did next is they got a couple of officers to fake breaking in to the property, the same way that these intruders would have done it. So that's what they did. And every single time they left fibres. Every single time. They never ever managed to break in and ransack the place, or fake ransack the place, without leaving fibres and evidence behind. It was impossible. And then Audrey's family reached out. They said that they were concerned that Audrey was hiding something and that she wasn't being entirely truthful. They also found her behaviour very peculiar. Not the behaviour that they would expect from somebody that has just lost their husband in such a traumatic and horrible way. Before the police could interview Audrey and get to the bottom of this unusual behaviour. Audrey tried to be unalive. And it was all very shocking, to be honest, and like, what? Whoa. She left a note. It read, "Please catch these terrible people who ruined my life. I cannot live without Eric." She was then taken to hospital to recover, and for a little while she was too delicate to be interviewed. The investigators took this chance to go over the flat again, really, really thoroughly, to try and just find anything. They were hoping to find trace evidence of somebody that had broken in, because at this point it was just like, what? They were beamed in? What happened? It's all very confusing. And Audrey's being weird. So things are, it was a lot of confusion. What do you know? When they researched the flat, they found a knife. It was down the side of some drawers, and it still had Eric's blood on the blade. They took the knife, they tested it for fingerprints. Can you guess whose fingerprints were on the knife? Spicy. Level 3. Audrey. On the 7th of October in 2003, Audrey was released from hospital and swiftly arrested on suspicion of murder. This caused a lot of controversy, like a lot. There were members of the police force that were like, what? No. Her knife in her kitchen, it's got her fingerprints on it. No way can this little sweet old lady have done this. Not a chance. And people in the community as well, they were just, no way. However, when she was arrested, when she was taken in, all of a sudden, Audrey changed her story. That's never good, is it? That's never good. Audrey said that what had actually happened that night is that Eric had unalived himself, and to spare her family any embarrassment about that situation, she had covered it up by making up a story about intruders. All right, Audrey. Audrey's son, the retired detective sergeant, he came to see her in police custody, and it is then that Audrey confessed to what she had actually done. Spicy level 4. She said that when she became Eric's carer, she watched her life just slip away from her. Her life that she cherished and she loved, her active social life, just disappeared. It had been pulled out from underneath her, and it made her incredibly depressed. And this is corroborated because she saw a doctor about 4 months before Eric's murder, 4 to 6 months, I think, and she was diagnosed with depression. She had come to resent Eric so incredibly much due to his ill health and their lovely life just being ruined because of it. And so she took matters into her own hands. Her son provided the police with a statement, an official statement on her behalf, and then she was charged with Eric's murder. Even then, even with a confession, people could not believe what she had done. They could not believe that she actually had done that. On the 12th of March in 2004, she stood trial. A witness came forward. Now, he had been delivering supplies to the butcher shop below at 2 a.m. What? Okay, at 2 a.m. And he heard moaning and groaning like somebody was in pain. But he knew that Eric was in ill health and he didn't think anything more of it. This was at 2 a.m. Audrey didn't call 999 until 3:45. So it is thought, and also the autopsy showed that about 2 a.m. would have been right for his time of death. So in that hour and 45 minutes, while her husband lay dying, Audrey then faked this break-in. She ransacked her own place, opened drawers and cupboards, hid the knife, bagged up valuables and left them by the window. So she did all of this before she called the police. The charge was also dropped. And this is where my opinions and my thoughts bubble to the surface, okay? Right? You can tell me if you agree or not. Her charge was dropped to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. They say that they took into account things like her age, history of depression, and that she didn't pose any threat to the public. Age. Okay, but she did kill somebody. Nobody really could believe that she had because she was 81, but she did. She did. So bringing her age into the issue of diminished responsibility, and how many cases have we seen where somebody who kind of quite clearly has got mental issues, health issues, they have to be like assessed like so much, and often sometimes they are deemed not to have been like, you know, out of their mind at the time of the murder, and they're tried as normal. And I thought that I didn't realise that it was such a fluid, like a, you know, a thing, because it seems like it's quite hard. You have to prove quite surely, if that's English, that somebody is not in their right mind at the time of the murder to get diminished responsibility. That was my thinking on this. And I feel like I must be wrong. I feel like maybe they obviously do take other factors into it. I don't think age should have been one, because she was capable at 81 to murder somebody. So she should be capable to stand trial for murder, which is what she did. So I don't get that. I don't get the age. No, she did what she did. I can see how they could think she doesn't pose a risk to the public. So yes, I do understand that. But, and history of depression. If that was enough to get diminished responsibility, I reckon nearly every single case people would, you know, surely everybody, most people that commit heinous crimes have got a history of depression. So I don't get that either. It did make me feel quite angry, and especially this bit, because she was then sentenced to 2 years in prison. 2 years. As you can imagine, Eric's family were really unhappy, and there was so much that kind of like was just so wrong about how this all went down. They weren't even told that the trial and the sentencing and everything that happened was going to happen on the day that it did. So they weren't there. They missed that whole thing. You know, normally like the family are there to represent the person that has been murdered, and they sit and they get to see the person on trial. They weren't told, and they weren't there. What? I'd be furious. I'd feel like something had just been stolen from me. That made me really angry, really sad. And then an impact statement was also read that day in court that had been written by Eric's family. But they had written it before they knew that Audrey was the person that had murdered him. They believed when they wrote the statement that she had been a victim as well, and that this awful, heinous crime had happened to her and that she was a victim. So the letter, is it a letter? Yeah, sorry, I'm emotional, had been written kind of like painting Audrey in a nice light. What? So they didn't read a true impact statement to the court. Not at all, because they hadn't written one after knowing that Audrey was the person that had done this. The family appealed all of this to no avail. It just makes me so... you know, when things are just so frustrating. At 81, Audrey became the oldest woman in Britain to go to jail. She served 1 whole year of her sentence. I understand that Audrey was elderly, 81. I understand that. But she was not insane. She had her wits about her. She knew what she was doing. It was cold, it was calculated, and it was premeditated. Get this. This is sick. In the week before murdering Eric, she got his own son to sharpen the knife that she used to kill him with. What the actual? That says it enough for me. 2-year sentence. Riddle me this. If a younger person... I'm not angry at you, by the way. I feel like I'm expressing my anger towards you. Not at all. At the situation. If a younger person, even like, say, 70, 60, whatever, yeah, a bit younger, with depression, suffering from depression, which many people do suffer with depression, if they decided one day that they were a bit fed up with their husband because they'd broken a leg and they had to look after them, so they stabbed them in the chest, would the sentencing be the same? So to me, the only issue is her age. That's the only thing that changed this scenario. Guess what as well? She lived for another 12 years Was it 12 or 16? Wait. She lived for another 12 years after she came out of prison. So for 12 years, she was free to live her life, completely free. And that blows my mind. And it makes me feel like that is not fair. She was 81. She was elderly. This wasn't like one of those situations where it was to put somebody out of their misery who was dealing with a really long term, and this happens, and it's very sad, where what I can't think what it's called, but one partner assists, is it assisted? I can't think. Ugh. But they assist their partner to leave because they are in so much pain, and it must be awful and sad and horrible, and it's very emotional, and there feels to be quite a lot of, well, there is love behind that action. They want to do what that person, they want to carry through on the wishes, and they want to assist the person to not be in pain any longer, and it's really awfully sad. This is not that. This is not that. She didn't want to look after him anymore. Cold, calculated, premeditated. Yes, she was 81, shouldn't have mattered in this case. Oof. Also, while he's laying there, talk about cold, laying there, dying, moaning so loudly that somebody downstairs delivering stuff could hear it, right? She just gets busy. She doesn't go and rock herself in a corner somewhere feeling bad for what she's done. She starts ransacking the place, making it look like a break-in. Also, cold and calculated. They're the two words, and premeditated, definitely. She saw those two fellas that were, easy to identify, and she tried to pin her husband's murder on these two men. And, things like that, stranger things happen. People do go to prison for things that they did not do. She was quite, willing to put them through all of that as well. She actually identified two people. She didn't just say, I didn't see them. I don't know. She actually identified two people. That's so callous and cold. I just find it, it's almost like people could not see past, they really couldn't see past her age and her small, they couldn't. And so she got 2 years and she served 1. Makes me angry. And I really feel for Eric's family, massively. He might have been elderly and in bad health, but nobody should have their life taken away like that. And there should be justice for it. The vein. Eric was buried next to his first wife, Jean. And that is all I have for you on today's case. I'm really interested to see what your thoughts are on this one today, because I feel quite strongly, and I know that I can be quite black and white in my thinking. Yeah, I don't have the sympathetic filter with this woman. It's not there. Why? Really finding it hard to find compassion. And I think that possibly I was quite close with my grandparents on my mum's side, very actually. And they were, it doesn't matter whether you are old, you don't just get respect, you earn respect. It is earned. It's not just a given because you have reached an age. That is my opinion, was their opinion. You be good, decent people, and then you are respected. And age was not age wasn't a thing. They were just people. And that's how I saw older people in my life. So I think that might be why. I don't have this filter of like, but she was 81. So, still a person. She still did what she did. Yeah? What? Maybe I'm being cruel. Don't think so. Am I being overly harsh? Don't know, but still, 2 years. Wow. I'm trying to think what I would have been like. 10 years? Would have been like, that is still half of what a lot of people get for murdering somebody in a cold, callous way, the words. Also interesting to know, which I don't actually know, I should have thought about that and researched that, but what would the sentence have been if she was 10? Do you see what I mean? That would be interesting to know. Would a 10-year-old have got 2 years and served 1? Or would it have been harsher? I'm not sure. I don't know. So let me know if you know that in the UK. I'm going to have to do some more research. Anyway, how are you all this fine day? Spring seems to have sprung, but touch wood, I almost don't want to say it, because every time I think that, I'm like, oh, it's a bit warmer. Daffodils, lovely. And then we have snow, and it's just freezing. I am over it, because everyone's been so sick, and people are saying, oh, it's because of COVID, because like 2 years ago or whatever, or for a long time, we've all been keeping our distance and we haven't been sharing our germs, so our immune systems are like, oh, pathetic, and maybe next year will be better. But come on, it's just been cold after cold after cold. Everyone's the same. Every time I speak to someone, they're not well. It's relentless. I feel like I have a good few weeks, and then here we go again. Sniffles, cough, sore throat, earache. Oh my Lord, just enough. We need spring to spring, spring to be sprung, spring to spring, whatever. It needs to happen. And then we all need to get outside, get some vitamin D, and just better be better next winter. People say, oh, it will be, because we've all shared our germs now. How do we know this? Who's telling people this? I tell people it though. I'm terrible. Someone tells me, and then I'm like, oh yeah, apparently it's going to be we've all shared our germs. It's like, I should really check my sources. Who's saying this? Did someone's nan just make that up? Oh, I'm sure it'll be better next year, love. And that's all now what we... Do you know what though? Actually, I just want to live in the hope that is the case next winter, because otherwise, hello. Yeah, really interested to hear what you have to say about today's case as well. I like having different perspectives on it, especially when I'm a bit set in what I think. I'm like, oh, I read things and then I think, oh, actually, yeah. Anyway, have a lovely weekend, and I'll be back next week. No, I won't be here next Friday with a video, so I will be skipping a week, and I'll be back the following week, because I want to just have a few days off and be in the moment, be present, not do any research, and just spend some time with the boys for Mother's Day weekend. So yeah, that's my plan. Stan, any case suggestions? Ow! Any case suggestions, welcome, please. Thank you. Love that. And yeah, I'll see you not next week, the week after. Love you. Bye.